Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello, and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that today is going to try and keep some semblance of its title and try and just go Netflix versus cinema and not just cinema. Because we come to you in a week where cinema has flexed its muscle and has shown exactly what it is it can do and why cinema was made in the first place. But before we get ahead into that, I shall introduce myself. My name is Tosin. I am recording this up in the West Midlands. And on the Isle of Wight with me, we have, as ever, Sharon.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hiya.
Yes, and so in case you did not realize from my veiled introduction, we are recording this in a week where finally, the film that has been waiting for a while, the cinematic event like no other, has finally been made available. No, I'm not talking about 8th grade. Avengers Endgame is out in the world. Avengers Endgame has been released. It has culminated a 10-year thing. It has done all that stuff. It has broken all sorts of records. And as we predicted last week, everybody has run scared. There's pretty much no other film that has been released, even though Sean managed to find one that he hadn't seen before. Isn't that right, Sean?
That is right, yes, but we'll review that one next week.
Yes. We shall review that next week. We shall put that out of the way because this week we are going to try and, as I say, try and stay true to the title of this show and try and find something to go up against this film, which I think we have all seen now. We've all seen Avengers Endgame, haven't we?
Yes.
I've seen it twice, I have to say,
Okay.
because there's been not a lot outside.
Yeah.
Sure.
On the island, the film, because sometimes, as we've had this discussion before, we don't get every film on the island. So the other film that I saw, which was when I was on the mainland, but it doesn't look like it's going to come to the...
No,
because
I doubt
it would be lovely for someone else to see it.
And Endgame has practically been on every screen, on the hour, every hour.
I know.
At the cinema. So if you did want to watch it, tough.
Well, the thing is that you think it's bad, right? Actually, this past weekend, I was thinking about, because I know my wife was thinking about going to see it, and I was actually trying to look at, what films are on, and it turned out that if you wanted to see a film between something like 12 midday and 5 p.m., that was not Avengers Endgame, you were bang out of luck. And we're talking about an 8... we're talking about 8-screen cinema. We're talking about 8-screen cinema, and we looked at it, and on the weekend, like even if I look at the timings of the weekend, it says Avengers Endgame. You have a 10:10, 11, 12:20, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4:20, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8:20, 9 o'clock, 9:45. And that is in its second weekend of release. The other films, let's see, Tolkien, you don't see it until 1 o'clock. The Coast of La Lorena until 4 o'clock. So essentially, you're just bang out of luck because in the middle of the day, it's like, yep, sorry, every single screen is showing Endgame. which quite frankly, does not happen that often, especially in this age, as we say, of other things to do. This is a kind of, I think it's a time when cinema has just flexed its muscle and has just said, yeah, look at us, this is what we can do. Because I honestly can't think of anything, and bearing in mind that this film is being released at the same time as Game of Thrones Season 8 is on TV, it's currently on TV. But I can't think of anything that would be released on TV or on, let's say, Netflix or anything like that would have this kind of dominance where people will be like, oh my God, you have to see this. Oh my God, we're going to shut everything down. I think this is cinema saying this is what only cinema can do.
Only cinema can do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been thinking, I do not want this spoilt for me in any way, so I'm going to go see it as soon as possible. And I think nearly everyone I've spoken to has said, I don't want it spoilt, so I'm going to see it as soon as I possibly can. Yeah.
I reckon this would be one of the most worldwide. It'd probably be the biggest one. Would you think?
Yes, I think it's made billions.
Or heading that must be heading that way.
Well, it made $1.2 billion in its first week. So,
jeez,
it's paid for itself. Then
they're happy with that. Then,
if you actually put a search in for how much money into Google, one of the first things that comes up is how much money has Endgame made so far, and then and there's a website called Digital Spy, and they actually have a running total where they say come back to this page to find out up to date how much money has Avengers Endgame made. So, so before this film was released, I actually thought, I was like, oh, I'm not sure because A, it's Avengers, and there's some people who just seem dead set against Marvel. They seem invested in saying they don't like Marvel, whatever happens, and I also thought the film is such a way that because it's become such a thing of cultural significance that even people who don't particularly like superheroes are talking about this film, and I was like, well, it's hard to please everybody. There's going to be some people who are going to be ripping their hair out and going, oh my God, they've ruined it, they've messed it up, and there was going to be a backlash against the film, but it doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, as Sean said, you've seen it twice, and I think, well, I'm definitely going to see it at least twice, and I feel like there's so much in the film that you go watch it once, and I've had so many conversations with people who either they friends of mine who know how into film I am, and they watch it, and I've had this WhatsApp threads that go, hang on, what about this? What about that? What about that?
Yeah, you see, I think with going to see it again is you actually see other things, you see things you didn't see before. I mean, the first showing I saw in 3D, but I watched it again in 2D, and it was a nice big screen. It was the big screen, and I actually saw a lot more than... Because you can relax a little bit more,
yeah.
And I saw some extra bits and bobs, and it clear. It was like, oh right, okay,
that makes more sense, yeah.
So yeah,
and you're still, and it is a spectacle, isn't it? So there is a lot going on visually. So I think it's easy to miss stuff, especially when there's so many characters you're trying to track. I think it can be, you can miss
things. Yeah, definitely you miss
sometimes.
Things. I mean, yeah. There were a few bits. There was a few bits. Extra, which I thought, oh yeah, and even some of the dialogue, even some of the screenplay, there was extra bits.
Not a spoiler, but did you stay to the very end to see if there's going to be an end credit scene, like a farewell?
Okay, without saying anything about that, of course.
Yeah,
of course, yes.
Of course. I mean, it just
because it it felt right.
Yeah.
Sure. I love that you said that because that's exactly what I thought. I was like, it's been 10 years. It's been 22 films. It's like, and in my head, I was thinking, whether there is one or whether there isn't, it just feels right.
It feels right.
To pay homage.
To just stick it out.
To pay homage to everything. To give tribute to what Marvel have done. And quite frankly, I was like, everybody who's been involved in making this film, I feel like it's not really about making this film, it's about the last 10 years. You've got to give them some credit and say, I'm staying until the very end when they tell me, how many babies were born during the making of this film.
Yeah.
So, right, but okay. We are called Netflix versus cinema, which means that we are going to have to try and find something on home entertainment that's going to go up against it. We can't, obviously there's Game of Thrones season 8 that we mentioned something about that, and it was a big episode this week that, but we have a rule that until the end of the series, until the end of a season, we don't bring a TV show into this because the story isn't over yet. Sean, you were going to say something.
But I was going to say, could we just not talk anything about the episode, but could we break the rules this time and just give one thought without saying anything of out of 5, and then we can discuss Avengers and.
Okay, all right.
See how TV, yeah.
Okay, because I can hear from the other end of the line. I can hear Sean bursting. So, so we will have a little bit. I would say a little bit out of 5 for this episode. Then what we're going to do is that we have found a poor little thing, almost literally a poor little thing that is going to try and go up against the might of Avengers Endgame today just to pay homage to the name of this show, and so we're going to do a little bit of our Peter Rabbit. Okay, we're going to break a little bit of our rules, talk a little bit about Game of Thrones season 8 with no spoilers, and then,
no spoilers at all. Just a rating,
just
a rating.
Okay, just a rating,
just for that. For last
week's episode.
This week's episode, yeah.
Okay.
We just give a rating. We don't say anything about it. We just say, and then we can discuss it off.
Okay.
In case people haven't seen it yet.
Okay, we'll give a rating. Then we're going to have a quick. I guess we'll give lip service to Peter Rabbit. Then we're going to have a little bit of talk about Avengers Endgame, a little bit that we've already said, with no spoilers. But what we're going to do is we're going to have another podcast of this in which we go in depth and we discuss everything about Avengers Endgame, just to help poor Sean out, because I know you're dying to talk about it. And, and we're going to do another, we're going to release 2 podcasts from this. I'm going to do a second one where we just discuss Avengers Endgame and everything into it. And also, we are going to have our super fan who listens to every show that we do and sends me messages asking questions and going on and saying that, and that's Nina. Nina, who keeps talking to me and going, "Oh my God, what about this? What about that? What about that?" I'm gonna have a phone call conversation with Nina.
Oh wow, that'd be good.
Yes, and talk to her about what she thought about Avengers Endgame, which we're gonna put into the spoilerific other episode. So does that make sense?
It does, yes, to me.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Okay, cool. So for those of you who have not seen Avengers Endgame yet, we would encourage you to go, because then you can listen to the whole thing. But we promise we will not. This particular episode, you will not spoil anything. The other one, which will have big massive warning signs on it, will tell you, well, we're just going to discuss everything in depth. But first up, so the I think the episode we're going to talk about in Game of Thrones is called the Battle of Winterfell or something. No, it's called the Long Night. It's actually called the Long Night.
The Long Night.
But everybody's referring to it as the Battle of Winterfell. So Sean, what was your rating of that episode? What did you think?
Okay, I'm going to surprise you here.
Yep.
3.
3.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yes.
I can totally see that. I can totally see that. Without saying anything else, I could totally see that. Sharon, have you seen it?
No. All
right, cool. I would go.
I haven't. I'm a Game of Thrones boycotter.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go 4.
You're gonna go. Yeah. Okay. You can understand why I went what I did, can't you? Because I've certainly got some issues with it.
Well, the thing is, I will admit that there are some issues with it, and there are some things that at the end I'm kind of like, and this is one of the things. This is one of the things where I talk about why we don't really talk about TV series until the whole thing is over, because I feel like there's 3 more episodes left for Game of Thrones.
There is,
and
I'm just going to say this is that I was comfortable with the end. I thought the end of that particular episode was right. I was more than happy with the end. It was some of the other stuff at the beginning that I was really I was like, there's no way. So we would not do that. You've had battles where you know the tactics of battles. Why, for goodness sake, would you do that? Why would you use up some of your best? Anyway,
don't into spoiler areas. How many is it? Is it a full season, this final one, or is it like an abbreviated season?
I think it's the full one.
It's a full season, but it's shorter than all the other ones. So there's only 6 episodes in the final season. They are.
All right.
Yeah, and the other seasons have had at least 8, I believe.
Yes, I'm normally sort of 8 or 10, aren't they?
Yeah. So, but some
Sharon.
But for instance, this last one was the longest episode. It was the longest episode ever. It was over an hour, and they said that they're going to do other things.
I see.
Yeah, they're going in this season. They said some of the episodes are going to be feature length.
Oh, okay. So they're making.
Yeah.
You've got the same number of hours, but
that's
just
like
over
So you could say it's a film. Now I'm going to say this, Sharon. I know you don't like the series, but you could watch one episode, which wouldn't matter if you didn't know anything about it, and it's only one battle scene, and it's probably. I've said this before, it's the best battle scene I've seen on cinema or on TV, and that is the Battle of the Bastards. You need to watch that episode, even if you don't watch anything else. Just watch that one battle.
My reasons for not watching Game of Thrones are quite specific. I think that George R. R. Martin has betrayed the book readers. Now, I've said it. And as a book reader, I feel completely disenchanted with the whole business.
But just watch that thing as like
because
nothing to do. Just watch the back.
Oh, you mean because he hasn't released all the other books? He's just sort of left it up to the TV.
Yes, I think he's abandoned the books in favour of the television show. Because when I read Dance with Dragons, it was on season 2 of the show, and he was saying at the end of Dance with Dragons, he was saying, I've got nearly all of Winter written. I'm just editing it and finalising it, and it'll be out within the next couple of years. That was 7 years ago.
It's probably after the Bucks. It's a lot more lucrative.
But in the meantime, he's managed to release 2 books about the history of the Targaryens.
Right.
Oh, really? Who cares about the history of the Targaryens? If you've read the books, you get plenty about the history of the Targaryens. We want the Winds of Winter, and now I've got to the point now where I'm thinking, you know what? Even if you did release it now, I don't know if I can be bothered to read it because I'm just so disenchanted with the whole business.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I think I understand what you're saying, because I do think that the book, essentially, if the books had been released before the TV show was released, it would still allow the thunder of the TV show. And quite frankly, the TV show is a bigger cultural deal than the books ever were.
Yeah.
So it is in the interest to make sure that the books are not released and then release the TV show and then do the books. I hear what you're saying, Sharon. I hear what you're saying, but I feel
they made a deal at some point saying they're going to prioritize the television over the books.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, because the books are quite different now. By Dance with Dragons, they are so different to that point in the television show. I don't quite frankly think it would matter because they are so different.
Yeah, it'd be like totally different.
I think
story.
it's like Walking Dead. I mean, the comics are so different to the television show that they're in parallel to each other and they touch base every now and then, but they run parallel to each other. And I think in some ways the books and the television thing of Game of Thrones are like parallel existences. They don't actually interact that much.
Yeah.
They've changed so many things that I think they could have done Winds of Winter without actually taking any thunder, because, who knows about Red John Connington? No one who hasn't read the books. Who knows about Lady Stoneheart? No one who hasn't read the books. So we want to know about what happened to those characters.
Okay.
As well as, the main ones. So again, it's like, really,
you're passionate about it. I can
just
see.
Made me
you're
so
like me.
cross.
You're like me. You get passionate about things.
Well, I'm
and you are
waiting
passionate
7 years
on
and then
this.
suddenly getting sort of told, you know what? We're not just going to bother giving you Winds of Winter now. You think, cheers.
Oh, I think, yeah, they're going to wait until.
Sorry, we digressed massively.
Yeah, the TV show is going to be over, and then all of a sudden, it's as a marketing point of view, I can see why you would say TV show is over. Oh, and now that the tour is over, let's tell you what George R. R. Martin really wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, the sales of those books are going to go through the roof because people are going to compare it and everything like that. So anyway, so we that's enough of Game of Thrones stuff.
Enough. Yes.
Enough. We've broken our rules enough already. And now put that out of the way. Now let's talk Peter Rabbit quickly.
Peter Rabbit.
Rabbit. So Sharon, you saw Peter Rabbit this week. You managed to actually...
Yes,
you managed to find space for something else in your life that wasn't Avengers Endgame related, or football, if you're Sean.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I had this sort of afternoon in with my mum, and so we were looking through films, and we this was bought like for Easter, so we thought, we'll sit down and watch Peter Rabbit. But there is a certain irony. There is a connection here with the Marvel universe. Ironically, if ever you've watched one of James Corden's sort of like video clips on YouTube, before Infinity War was released, James Corden did a little short film called James Corden's Stars Tour with the Stars. So it's like, and he had the cast of Infinity War on a tour of Hollywood, looking at famous sites. And they stopped at this comic book shop and they got a lot of the actors from Infinity War to sign all these comic books. And you see him stood underneath a poster for Peter Rabbit saying, I can sign any Peter Rabbit merchandise for you if you like. And they're all like going, and they're all ignoring him completely. So there is a link between, so do watch it. It is quite funny. And it does have nearly all of the cast of Infinity War on this double-decker bus touring Los Angeles. It's quite bizarre.
Yeah.
So anyway, Peter Rabbit. So Peter Rabbit is based on the characters by Beatrix Potter.
Yep.
But it's set in sort of like modern day Lake District, where you have Farmer McGregor and the rabbits who live in the borough next door. And then you have this sort of like artist lady played by, I have lost her name completely. Rose Byrne, who plays Bee. And she is an artist who lives next door, and she like befriends all the animals. And she's sort of friendly with Farmer McGregor, but she doesn't agree with the fact that he tries to kill the animals and he won't let them in his garden.
Yep.
Then one day, Farmer McGregor drops dead of a heart attack, and his property is inherited by his great nephew, who's played by
Donald Gleason.
Yes, and he comes along and he then starts this battle with the rabbits over the garden and his house and life in general, whilst he is sort of having this sort of swoony relationship with the lady next door. And so the rabbits don't like him, and they try to do everything they can to make him go away.
Yeah.
With comic hijinks ensuing.
Yeah.
And so it is aimed at a family film. There's a little slapstick, there's sort of broad humour, and there's nods to the book. So you've got all of the characters from the books appear. You've got Peter Rabbit. You end up with Mrs. Tiggy Winkle's in there. Jeremy Fisher's in there. The Tailor of Pigling Bland is there. There's loads of characters from the books that you would recognise.
Yeah.
And so you've got, if you know Beatrix Potter, you can there's nods to different characters all the way through.
I don't really. I mean, I know of Beatrix Potter and like Jemima Puddle Duck and all those, but I'd never read them, and so I don't really know. So not really.
I'm a bit of a fan of Beatrix Potter because I've been to the Lake District and been to her house, and I'm a fan of her art that isn't part of her illustrations. She was a very gifted artist, and she was a bit of a scientist as well. She studied sort of mushrooms and fungi and stuff, and to this remarkable degree. Had she been allowed to become a professional, to have any sort of job by her parents, she would have been a brilliant scientist. She had a really scientific mind. So she was a brilliant woman.
What year were the books written? Are they like
in the 1920s?
1920s. Oh, okay.
Mostly.
Yeah, that was the year when they were written.
I think some of them started off just before, but they were sort of like teens and 20s mainly.
Cool. Okay, so Sharon, you're very well placed to actually answer this question, because as a fan of the book and as a fan of Beatrice Potter's stuff before the film was released, because I personally didn't know anything about her before I saw the film, and I didn't know anything about I knew Peter Rabbit was like this big, or was a big deal. So, but
yes,
and I was watching it, and obviously this is a film, it's made, and it's all like Hollywood, and I was looking for just signs that they had taken this thing and they'd Hollywoodized it up, and like the fact that I have this whole thing about James Corden, that whenever he plays a character, he kind of takes over and makes it the James Corden show, and it isn't actually. It might not be. Once I heard it was James Corden, I was like, this probably isn't going to be true to the original spirit. But you are a really good person who is well placed to say. So, what did you think about that from that point of view?
I think it very much is James Corden's Peter Rabbit rather than Beatrix Potter's Peter Rabbit.
Okay.
He's a bit brash, he's a bit loud, he's a bit full of himself. And
he's a bit of a lad.
A bit of a lad. Whereas Peter Rabbit, Beatrix Potter's Peter Rabbit was a bit cheeky.
Okay.
He's a bit of a cheeky boy, but he wasn't a lad. Right. So it's very much is James Corden's Peter Rabbit. And the only thing, I did find it rather distracting because they were saying, oh, this is Windermere. Oh, and I'm going to drive down into the village of Windermere and go to the shop. And I've been to Windermere and it looks nothing like it. It's obvious. It has obviously not been filmed anywhere near the Lake District. And I later found out that it's actually filmed in Australia. So nearly all the voice artists are Australian, putting on English accents to different degrees.
Oh, yeah, good point. Good point, yeah.
But yes, it's... Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did not think about that. You're right.
But yeah, and the scenery, it's not the Lake District. And there's one scene where they're at a bridge, and I'm thinking, that bridge does not exist anywhere in the Lake District or anywhere in Great Britain. It's just not a British bridge. And there's certain scenes where I'm thinking, those road markings look a bit odd. And it's clearly not filmed in this country. But that can be a bit distracting, but only if you're a bit of a purist like me.
All right, cool. So, if you're going to come down and say, okay, we're going to give this thing a rating, what would you rate it?
Well, me and my mum enjoyed it, and I think it is family friendly. There's a little bit of sort of slapstick and silliness goes on but nothing that's too broad or anything that you couldn't watch comfortably with young children. So on that basis, I would give it a solid 3.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a classic. I don't think it's one of those films that we look back in 20 years and going, oh, Peter Rabbit, that wonderful classic of cinema. So I think it's a solid 3. It's entertaining enough for children and the family, or like me, watching it with your 85-year-old mother.
All right, I agreed with you. I think when I reviewed that when it came out in cinemas, and I gave it a 3 as well. I'll tell you one thing, it's definitely no Paddington 2.
No, it isn't. No,
because Paddington 2 I think that film is almost transcendent. But
yes, I think Hugh
Hugh Grant,
is just a sublime in it. Yeah, he's sublime in it. So yeah, this is entertaining, but it's not above the average.
Yeah. All right, cool. I mean, there's more we could say about that, but quite frankly, we don't really want to because we have something.
It's enough. Yeah,
it's enough. I mean, Sean, there's anything you want to say about Peter Rabbit? Nah.
I've not seen it, no, so nothing to want to see a bit say about Peter Rabbit
All right,
because I haven't seen it.
All right, cool. Is there anything else that we might want to talk about instead of Peter Rabbit? I don't know. Maybe it has to do with superheroes.
I mean, I see on Netflix now they do have. I mean, they do have some sort of films that have been at the cinema, don't they?
Yeah.
So like Peter Rabbit was at the cinema. So what happens if I watch something on Netflix if I want to watch a film again? So say a film I've seen at the cinema.
If you've seen it again, it doesn't count. It's
We're
got
not
to be the first viewing.
It's got to be the first viewing.
That's
okay,
the
that's
rules.
fine. That was the
Them's
rules. Yeah,
the
no, I
rules.
remember. I was just checking on that.
Yeah,
so
them's the rules. Them's the rules. But
That's the rules.
Because I actually saw something that stars one of the stars of Avengers Endgame. It's a film that has Paul Rudd in it called Ideal Home. But I'm not going to talk about that. No, next week.
Next week.
Next week.
Okay. Next week. Yeah. Well, I really so want to talk about eighth grade. I really, really want to talk about that. So hopefully, if you get a chance
Tuck it behind your ear for next week.
Yeah, behind the ear for next week. But then you guys, well, I doubt you'll be able to see it, Sharon, because it probably won't come to the
I doubt
islands.
it,
But
yeah.
I'm
But
hoping-
I might find something equally worthy.
I've heard good things about eighth grade, and I'm trying to track it down because I was surprised when you said it was out because I didn't think it was out because it's not anywhere near any of the cinemas near me. So
oh,
yeah,
how strange.
yeah, I can't. I
mean,
honestly can't find it anywhere.
You'll have to go to Pool 8:45. It's on because I've been checking 8:45 at Pool, just the one showing. So
Okay, cool.
yeah.
All right. So now we've gotten the sort of amuse bouche out of the way. We come on to the main meal of this week's podcast, and this is Avengers Endgame. It's a film that almost kind of, how usually when we talk about stuff, we try and give a synopsis of the film and say, oh, this is what happens in the film. And it's almost pointless with this film. All you have to say is Avengers Endgame. People kind of know. It's the new it's the new film. It's a new film out. It is the 22nd film in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. Or this, at one point, which was probably referred to as the Marvel Cinematic Experiment, because what they were trying to do with the films had never been done before. And it struck me when we were watching this film that what they've essentially done is they have made a TV series at the cinema. So the same way how we're talking about Game of Thrones and how you have Game of Thrones season 8 and everything that you've seen so far is built up to season 8. And I was like, oh my god, this is the cinematic equivalent. They have made a season 8 in cinema, but there's 21 previous. I was just like, oh my, how did they do this? It's crazy.
Yeah, because there is a story arc, isn't there? There is this overarching theme that runs through them all, that links them all. So yeah, I don't think it's ever been done.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been done. And when you look at the cast of this film, at the end of the film, they come up and they start giving you the cast of the film, and you think, oh my, this is madness. How do you get all these people in the same film? You just think this is crazy. It has just become this big, massive, overwhelming thing. So I mean, I'm not even going to talk about what the plot is. The general thing. Infinity War came out last year. You had this big blue, big purple guy called Thanos who was looking for Infinity Stones. He managed to do something at the end of this, and then this follows on from that. This follows on almost from the immediate aftermath of the first film. So I'm just going to ask, what did you guys think?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
You go, Sean.
Right, for me, this film brought everything together.
Yeah.
And I think it did a really, really, really great job of bringing everything together that we've been waiting for. And it was like a 3-act. I thought it was like in three acts. So
yeah, 3-hour film, 3 acts.
Believe it or not, there were some moments where I was I nearly got quite teary, which is really, really amazing because it never happens. And there was a couple of things.
I hands up. I about teary at the end. I was a bit, definitely.
Yeah, I thought it was.
I had blow my old nose before I could leave the cinema.
Especially in the
final
previous
hour.
And in the like the first part where you can understand how things. It just worked really so well. 3000. It was just really, really, really good. I thought. So I have to say, and and the action was great, and I don't know, it just worked. It worked. It was well done, and it brought everything together, and it was quite emotional in parts as well.
My biggest concern before I watched it was that they're going to make it too easy. That they're going to do like a click of the fingers and everything's going to be
sorted. No, don't worry.
Reset the clock.
Yeah, good guys win. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought if they do it and it's too easy, I would just feel a bit cheated. And, they didn't. I thought that they did it. Well, I wouldn't have been able to predict how they would do it, because I thought, how would you get to a certain point without cheating all that's gone before? And they didn't. And so I was really impressed by how skillfully it was constructed. And I think it was constructed really well.
It really was. There was a lot of thought gone into it.
Because I know one of my friends commented he thought that then certain parts were a bit slow. And I thought, no, I don't think they were. I thought you had to have that sort of pacing and to get the emotional impact of certain events.
Okay.
Otherwise, without that without seeing the consequences of some events, you're not going to be able to see what drives people. You need to be able to see, okay, this is an event and these are the consequences and this is how we're going to react. And I think you have to have those 3 stages.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think without that, it would have been, to me, I would have felt slightly cheated if it'd been a bit too easy for them to sort things out.
Yeah, I agree totally with that.
But it's almost like a heist movie in some ways, that sometimes you want the heist to go really, really well.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get these sort of spanners get thrown in and you're going, oh no, what's going to happen now? And I had that sort of reaction at certain points in the film. So I think it's kept me engaged with what was happening on the screen.
And it didn't seem that long, really.
No,
it was quite surprising how, it just didn't sit.
I would thought, do I need to take my sandwiches in a flask with me if it's going to be 3 hours long? And I got by with the 2 packets of Maltesers, so I was happy.
There you go.
Only small packets; they weren't like the 2 grab bags of Maltesers. They were like 2 standard-sized packets of Maltesers. That got me through the film.
I think I had a bag of carrot batons. That was got me through the film.
Actually, talking about it now, I want to go and see it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
Well, picking at.
Well, I think I agree with everything you guys are saying, because I mean, before I saw this film, I essentially said, I was like, look, I think that they've earned the right to do whatever they want. Because quite frankly, the last 10 years, the last 21 films, they have pulled off something that's just amazing. It's gone to the point where I just trust this company. I trust these guys. I'm like, look, whatever they do is fine by me. I might like it. I might not like it. I might be prepared to not like it. But even if I didn't like it, they get a free pass for me because of what they've done over the last 10 years. That was, but I watched the film and I was like, oh my God, they're still working so hard. I mean, the 2 words that came to my mind when I was watching this film was victory lap. I was like, this film is a total victory lap for the last 10 years. So it's, and there's 2 kinds of victory lap. So it's kind of like, you know what Usain Bolt in Rio 2016, he finishes his thing, he's won his 9th gold medal, he's running around the thing. So you came to see the gold, you came to see him win the gold medal, but now he's won the gold medal, and now you're just enjoying him running around the track, you're loving everything he's doing. And in my head, I was thinking that's what this film is. They've won the gold medal. They've made this film the biggest deal ever, even before the film was released. That is the gold medal, and now they're going for a victory lap, but they're still working so hard on their victory lap because they want to finish this thing well, and they do it so. I mean, what you were saying about the first bit. I mean, they do it so well and bring everything together, because I know there were a lot of people who were shocked at the end of the previous film, Avengers: Infinity War, and they said, the people were like, "Oh my God, what have they done? They can't end the film like that." Because if that film stood alone on its own without anything, it has a massive, probably one of the biggest downbeat endings. But I mean, with people like us who, like Sean and I mean, we were reading comic books for ages, so we kind of know so we knew, okay, that's not the end of the story. And also, if you had any interest in film, you knew there was going to be another Avengers movie, so you knew that wasn't the end of the story. So for me, the end of Infinity War didn't quite have that impact. I was kind of like, well, we know that's not the end of the story. But for people who didn't know, I think it had a massive. People were like, what the? Apparently, there were people who watched it who didn't realize there was a second film coming, and were totally so crestfallen by the end of that film. And I wasn't, so I didn't feel like the ending of that worked that well. But the beginning of this film makes the ending of Infinity War work so much better for me. because
definitely,
yeah.
yes.
So it's like how what you were saying, Sharon, about it not being too easy, because there is a world in which somebody decides to make this film and it's just kind of like, all right, that happened in the last film, but hey, forget about that. Now we're just going to carry on. But the first, as Sean was saying, the first third of this film pretty much deals with the aftermath of the last film. And what sells it for me is the performances and the characters. Because within this world, obviously, we know there's going to be another film, but the characters don't know there's going to be another film. And at the beginning of Endgame, they sell that so well. Like what every single character who is left after Infinity War, every single character, you believe that they are dealing with something like, oh my God. But I mean, hopefully by now it shouldn't be a spoiler to say at the end of Infinity War they fail. And you and you get to see how they deal with it. And I think every single one of the actors just brings their A game. I mean, Scarlett Johansson is awesome. She is awesome in the whole, oh my God, what do we do now? Chris Evans as Captain America, great. Robert Downey Jr. is amazing as Tony Stark.
He's really good.
Oh,
Definitely.
He is amazing.
And I have to say, Jeremy Renner as well. I mean,
he delivers.
That was sort of like great, really. I thought. I mean, to me, that was he played that brilliantly.
Yeah.
Of.
Yeah,
Go. Yeah.
Yeah,
you agree with that one?
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Because just the idea that you get the idea that it's real for these characters, and they all sell the fact that it is real for them. That this is, and so the first hour of the film is almost kind of like, it's like a film about survivors of a war. And
how they cope, how they react in different ways.
It's about
definitely. It really does. You really do get that feeling as well that this is a changed world, and they're reeling from it, and they're they're trying to keep some semblance of normal life, but it's just like
trying to carry on.
They've all sort of.
But they're all scarred. And so I think the beginning of this film, I mean, it just, as I said, it makes the ending of Infinity. It sells to me the ending of Infinity War, that these people are like, yes, they have lost something. They have lost something big, and they're not going to. It's not going to be easy for them. They're not going to just get up and move on with it. And I love the fact that it also takes this whole thing of, even though they're superheroes and they have all this strength and they can do all this stuff, that there is a limit to what they can achieve. And the film makes some decisions. I mean, in the first 15 minutes of this film, pretty much the trailers, and one thing I love about the trailers is that the trailers of this film, almost everything in the trailers was from the first 15 minutes of the film. So, okay, I'm expected to see that. But everything in between the bits you've seen in the trailers, I was shocked. I was like, what? Oh, yeah, sit. Oh, good Lord, what are you going to do now? And I just loved the way they did that. I love the way that they took it seriously. They gave these characters the due that they deserved. They essentially went, all right, this is kind of like a real world. Sure enough, people can fly. Sure enough, people can blast things from their hands. Sure enough, people can build billion-dollar suits, which they use to fight crime. But their emotions are real, and they worked for every single thing that shows up in the film. And I absolutely loved that.
Yeah,
definitely.
And even some of the sort of comic effect, there's some of the after effects that they've dealt with in a sort of comic way.
Yes.
But there's real pathos in there as well. You can really see the pain.
Yeah.
Even though some of it you think there's humour there, but you can see the pain through it. So yes, they can't, even things that you'd think, that's just silly. Yeah. They've dealt with it in a way that yes, people do react in different ways, and someone could go from there to there. Yeah. Thinking of one character in particular, and you think it could happen, couldn't it?
Definitely.
Because people do, if they lose their purpose, they. Yeah. And they feel they've got. Yeah. What do they do when you do end up, eating, watching the telly, and playing video games with your mates? Yeah. And I think it's, you do get people react different ways. Yeah.
And we will, and obviously we're going to have a spoilerific bit. So for those of you who have seen the film, you know what we're talking about, and we will go into it in depth in the spoilerific bit when this first bit's over. But Sharon, I couldn't agree with you more. I just couldn't agree with you. I think, and the humor as well was so impressive because you're going through all this stuff that's quite frankly quite dark. You're going through all this stuff that
Yes.
they're talking about. It's quite dark. You're dealing with survivors of a massive event. You have people who have guilt because they feel they could have done more. You have people who don't know where they're gonna go now because how do you carry on when the world has changed so irrevocably, which has echoes of real life situations that we've had in the past decade. But at the same time, you have this humor in there, which I feel the way it's dealt with in the film, I'm kind of like, yeah, but that's life because bad things happen, but that doesn't mean that there's no laughter left. There's still, and they just do that so well. They nail the tone.
They do.
I think
yeah, definitely.
The tone in the film is nailed so well. There's bits in it where I think even later on when they sort of like come up with, okay, what's the plot of this film? What's going to happen? Like let's say the second act where things kick off and they go, all right, maybe there's something we can do. They go into this whole thing where they don't give themselves, they don't make it easy for themselves. They don't give themselves an easy out, so to say, and they explain to you exactly why they're not going to give you an easy out.
Yeah, I mean, also things are explained well where to me they make sense. Like we're talking about, with the character we're talking about with the sort of comedic bit where all the settlement, you know what I mean, where it is and how that's come to be, and it's just like, wow, you've really thought about this. You could have made it a lot different, but you've given this some thought. That
You've
bit was particularly, you know what I mean?
You tried to stay true to these
characters.
characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that was a great touch, really. That that nice rocky place.
Yeah.
That was just, I thought,
Sean, at this point in time,
so,
I'd like to just sort of say I commend you so much for how much you're trying not to give any spoilers.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Don't worry, it's not long now. You can let it all flow.
I commend you so much because I know how much you love to talk about the nitty and gritty of stuff, but yeah, and
that bit was it's just, well, yeah, they've done that right, that's logical. That's
where they would seek.
That's
where they would go.
And at the end of the film, the thing that gets me is that at the end of the film, it's a kind of film where I was expecting to be able to sit down at the end of the film and go, hang on a second, what about that? That wouldn't have happened if you did that. That wouldn't happen if you did that. But I sat down, thought about it, and I've been like, actually, no, that works. I've pretty much interrogated the film and gone through it and gone. I was like, oh no, okay, no, that links. Oh no, that's covered off. Oh no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And as I said, there's some people who are like, oh, hang on a second, isn't that a plot hole? But I haven't heard anybody say anything to me that is actually a plot hole. I think it's just that they haven't quite understood what goes on because the plot that unfolds it requires a little bit of physics. And it requires a little bit of understanding, and it's a little bit mind bending. But I think for me, when you get your head around it, you're like, actually, it makes sense. Yeah, it holds together. It holds together. It is consistent. And I don't think. Well, I think that's just a massive achievement. I mean, being able to do that. For me, the way the plot goes, it makes you ask questions about some of the characters. But I'm like, hang on, but if that was the case, that means that, oh my God, the whole time, oh my God. So it makes you ask questions about it. But I just love it. And I said, I mean, you guys were talking about crying. I think I was close to tears twice. And there was once where I'm pretty sure I had a tear in my eye. There was once in the film where I was actually like, oh, good Lord, they
It's got me. Yeah, it's got me.
Yeah, they're doing this. They're pulling this off. Like at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, where you had where there's a scene that most people have said that they cried at between Rocket Raccoon and Groot. And people are like, why am I crying? It's just a CG tree and a CG raccoon. Why is there water coming out of my eyes? And I think in this film, you're thinking, it's about superheroes. Why is it so emotional? So, but yeah, I mean, I loved it. So I think because I know you guys have to get to a film quiz.
Yep.
Yeah, I know you have to get to a film quiz, and we still need to give some good time to speak about spoilers and everything like that. And I'm quite impressed with us, and I'm beginning to realize we could speak a lot longer about this film without giving any spoilers away. But I think we put people out of their misery and just say, look, just go watch this film, all right? Just go watch this film. But what would you rate it? How many stars would you give it?
I'm giving it a 5 all the way.
Yeah.
For me, I just
I'm
work.
trying to think. Well, normally I sort of start with a perfect score and take points off if I don't like something, and I can't this one. I think it's going to have to be a 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think it's gonna have to be a 5 because
That must be a first, mustn't it?
Yeah,
I think
because normally
yeah. I don't think it's perfect by any sense of the imagination, but I think as to round up what's happened over the last 10 years and to round up what's happened over 22 films, it is pretty perfect.
It is. Yeah.
I think I'm like, wow, how did you they've done it, they've challenged you, they haven't done exactly what you'd expect. They haven't, as you said, they don't just click their fingers and everything is back. Oh, it was all a dream.
it was like, hey.
Yeah, they haven't.
Yeah, if anything, the only thing I would say is there's some characters I wanted a bit more about,
yes,
or I wanted to see more of, and so I'm thinking, if anything, I would want like the Peter Jackson version of this now. I want the 5-hour version that fills in all those gaps, like the Lord of the Rings special editions. You know, I want the full whammy because there's a few things I'm thinking I could have done a bit more there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suppose there's so many characters, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they just talk. It's just superheroes alone. You're talking over 20, and God knows about it. So it's funny because before we started recording, Sharon, you said that you were asking, okay, so what happens now? Where does it go from here? And I think they've noticed that. Obviously, this is Marvel. Now we're going to the real world. We talk about the business side of things. Marvel is owned by Disney. And later on in the year, they're releasing. They're gonna start on their rival to Netflix called Disney Plus, and some of the characters in the film are going to have TV shows. So they're gonna have 6-episode miniseries based on those characters. And I think that they're going to.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Hawkeye is going to have a miniseries. There's a series that's going to be made about the Scarlet Witch and Vision called WandaVision that's going to be on there. Loki. And if you've watched Infinity War, this might be a bit of a surprise for you. Loki is going to have a mini-series, which I think might answer some questions
He's really popular, Loki.
Yeah.
Loki is a very, very popular character.
Yeah, I think
a lot of ladies like Loki for some reason.
Yeah,
I think
he's got a twinkle.
So I think Tom Hiddleston owes a lot of his current fame down to Loki. So
I believe that. Yeah, definitely.
So Loki.
Will they be the same actors playing the roles though?
The same actors.
That's the thing. In Hawkeye.
It's the same
I'd imagine
actors.
they'd be.
Oh well, that's okay then.
Yeah,
they've got the power behind that.
They've got the money.
So they'd probably be able to. They'd probably be able to take Agents of Shield then, and everything else will just all go on to the Disney Channel or whatever they're going to call it.
Well, yeah,
and it wouldn't surprise me if eventually if they make a move on the DC characters.
They want to own the world.
Yeah,
do a crossover, do a crossover. I mean, it's been done in the comics. It has been done in the comics. There has been crossovers. There's been Spider-Man and Superman.
It has been done in the comics. I would say it was never particularly popular when it was done in the comics, but it has been done in the comics. But
I mean, there's quite a few fans of the film that probably haven't read the comics but still enjoy the film. So
can
you imagine that?
Yeah, so we'll see what will happen. But okay, so we need to get onto the spoilerific chat that we are going to have, where we're going to talk about everything about this film in depth, things that go on, all that sort of stuff, and why, in my point of view, the film makes sense, even though there's loads of people who have tried to go, oh no, but blah 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 blah, and I'm like, you don't understand. You were not tracking. You were not following. Let me explain it to you. Let me explain to you, young Padawan. Let me explain to you why this makes sense. So we are going to do that, and we have to end. We have to stop this here. So all we're going to say is thank you so much for listening to us. We will see you next week, where we will talk about 8th grade, and we will. I think it would have been 2 weeks by the time Avengers Endgame was out, so things would have calmed down a bit. You would have gone to see it. If you have any thoughts, please do get in touch with us on Twitter at Netflix versus Cinema. So Netflix vs Cinema, or with the same thing on Facebook. Get in touch with us and let us know what you thought about it and anything like. And maybe you too can come onto the show, like Nina is going to come, and when you hear the spoilerific chat we have, and say what you thought about different things. It will be great to see you. We will see you next week, and until then, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Oh, I forgot to say who won this week, but I think it's pretty obvious. This week it's Cinema.
Yeah.
It's a big, massive win.
Smashed it. Cinema smashed it.
Cinema
Absolutely.
smash!
Poor old
Yeah.
Peter Rabbit.
That's it. Poor Peter Rabbit.
He never had a chance.
He didn't, did he?
Never had a chance. All right, cool. We will see you next week. And for those of you who might be listening to us online, we will see you in a couple of seconds when you listen to our big chat where we go in depth into Avengers Endgame and talk about all the different things. All right. Thank you. Bye.